Hello everyone. In this lesson, let's see what are square roots and how to find them. Square root is denoted by this symbol which is called radical. And square root is defined as a number that when multiplied by itself gives a given number. So let's see what it means. Since 1 times 1 equals 1, so the square root of 1 will be 1. 2 times 2 equals 4, so the square root of 4 is equals to 2. 3 times 3 equals 9, so the square root of 9 will be 3. So square root is a number that when multiplied by itself gives a given number. Likewise, 4 times 4 is 16, so the square root of 16 will be 4. So what is the square root of 25? So this, since 5 times 5 equals 25, so the square root of 25 is 5. Likewise, how much is the square root of 100? Since 10 times 10 gives us 100, so 10 would be the square root of 100. So now let's see what square root and perfect square represents. We know that square root of 9 equals 3 because 3 times 3 gives us 9. So let's see what this 3 square root of 9 it represents. So let's draw a square. So the area of the square is 9 square units, whereas the side length of the square is 3 units. So the side length is represented by square root, whereas the area of a square is represented by perfect square. Likewise, the square root of 100 is 10. So this 100, it represents the area of a square, whereas this 10, the square root, it represents the side length of a square. So the area of a square is represented by a perfect square, whereas the side length of a square is represented by a square root. Let's look at this point on square root, which says that square root of perfect squares are a whole number, whereas the square root of non-perfect squares are decimal number. Since we have already learned perfect square in the last video, so for your reference, I'll attach its link in the description below. We know that 1, 4, 9, 16, 25, 36, and so on. These are the perfect square. So the square root of all these perfect squares are whole number. So the square root of 1 will be 1, square root of 4 will be 2. Likewise, the square root of 25 will be 5, because 5 times 5 gives us 25. So the square root of 25, of course, is 5. So you see, the square root of perfect squares are whole number, whereas the square root of non-perfect squares are decimal numbers. So the non-perfect squares are the numbers that are between perfect squares. So in this case, 2 and 3 will be non-perfect square. Likewise, here non-perfect squares between 4 and 9 will be 5, 6, 7, 8. Likewise, non-perfect between 9 and 16 will be 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. So all these numbers that are between perfect squares are non-perfect square. And the square root of non-perfect square, like let's say the square root of 5 will be approximately equals to 2.24. So the square root of non-perfect squares will be decimal. Now let's look at this long division method, which is in fact very useful to find the square root of large number. So let's take one example. Let's see how to find the square root of 625 by long division method. So first thing, let's group this 625 into pair. So this 25 will be first pair, and then this 6 will be another pair. We know that 0 is here just before 6, but it doesn't matter, so we need not write this 0. Now place this 625 into long division table. The next thing, is to find a divisor. So the divisor will be a square root of a perfect square which is equals to 6 or less than 6. So let's see, 1 times 1 equals 1, 2 times 2 equals 4, 3 times 3 equals 9. These are all the perfect square. So the perfect square which is equals to 6 or which is less than 6 will be this 4. Since 4 is less than 6, so we will choose this perfect square. And the divisor will be 2. And the quotient will also be 2. So 2 times 2 gives us 4. Let's subtract this 4 from 6 and the remainder will be 2. Now bring this another pair, that is 25, down, and on this divisor side add plus 2 at the same divisor. So 2 plus 2 will be 4. Now there is a number in the unit place which when multiplied by itself gives either 225 or less than 225. So let's now try. So let's say that number is 0. So 4, 0, and we have to multiply it with the same number. So 0 times 0 is 0, 0 times 0 is 0. So this 0 is too low. So let's try with another number. Let's say we have 1 and we have to multiply it with the same number. So 1 times 1 is 1, 1 times 4 is 4. This 41 is also too low. Let's try with 2. 2 times 2 is 4 and 2 times 4 is 8. So 84 is also quite low. So let's try another number. Let's try 5 in the unit place and we have to multiply with the same number. So 5 is 25, 2 will be carry, 5 4 is 20 plus 2 will be 22. So now since this 5 fulfills the condition, so the number here in the unit place will be 5, and then the same thing will go in the question 5. Now 25 times 5 will be 225. So now when you subtract 225 from 225, your remainder will be 0. So the square root of 625 will be your question, that is 25. Now let's look at another example. Let's say we are asked to find the square root of 3249. So first thing is to pair it into groups. So this is one pair, this is another pair. Place this in long division table. Now the next thing is to find a divisor, that is the square root of a perfect square which is less than 32 or equals 32. So 1 times 1 is 1, 2 times 2 is 4, 3 times 3 will be 9, 4 times 4 is 16, 5 times 5 is 25, 6 times 6 is 36. So now since 25 is a perfect square which is less than 32, so let's choose this 25 and then the divisor will be 5 here. Divisor is 5 and the question will also be 5. Now 5 times 5 gives us 25. And when you subtract 25 from 32, it gives us 7. So bring this another pair, that is 49, down and add plus 5 in the divisor side. So you have to add the same number. So 5 plus 5 will give us 10. So there is a number in the unit place such that when you multiply by itself will give us 749 or less than 749. So let's see what number gives that. Let's place 1 in the unit place and try to multiply with the same digit. 1 times 1 is 1, 1 0 is 0, 1 1 is 1. Since this 101 is too less, so let's try with another number. Let's say we have 10 and then let's put 5 in the unit place and we have to multiply it with the same number, that is 5. 5 is 25, 2 will be carry, 5 times 0 is 0, plus 2 is 2, 5 1 is 5. This 521 is also a bit low. Let's try with another number. Let's try with 7 7 times 7 is 49. 4 is carry. 700 plus 4 is 4. 7 times 1 is 7. So since the 7 fulfills the condition, so 7 will be placed here, and also the same thing will be placed on the question. So 107 times 7 will give us 749. When you subtract 749 from 749, the remainder is 0. So the square root of 3249 is our question, that is 57. Let's try one last example. Let's try to find the square root of 2500. First thing, you group it in pair. This will 0 is one pair, 25 is another pair. Next thing, place it in a long division table. 25 0 0. So now you find the divisor, that is the square root of a perfect square, equals to 25 or less than 25. 3 times 3 is 9, 4 times 4 is 16, 5 times 5 is 25. Since this is the perfect square, that is equals to 25, so our divisor here will be 5, and then the question will also be same, that is 5. So 5 times 5 gives us 25, and when you subtract 25 from 25, the remainder will be 0. Bring this another pair down, that is 0 0, and on this side of the divisor you add the same divisor again, 5 plus 5, that is 10. Now you need to have one digit in the unit place such that when you multiply it with the same digit, it should give us 0. So 10, let's place 0 here and multiply with the same digit. So 0 times 0 is 0, 0 times 0 is 0, 0 times 1 is 0. So since 0 fulfills this situation, so whatever we place here should also be placed on the question. So now 100 times 0 is 0. So the remainder here is 0. So the square root of 2500 will be your question, that is 50. I hope this lesson helps you all.